How's Patty about Cincinnati? What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.
Hello, Reds fans, and welcome to another edition of We Love Our Team. Along with my partner, Randy Freking, I'm Jack Greiner, and today we are pleased and honored to welcome to the podcast Joe Sunderman and Byron Larkin. Joe Sunderman was a standout basketball player at LaSalle High School and then Xavier University. He made a major impact on the court as a Musketeer, playing in 97 games and starting 74 times. He enjoyed his best season as a senior, averaging 9.6 points a game and a team-high 8.6 rebounds. Since graduation, Joe's name has been synonymous with Xavier basketball. Joe's been the voice of Xavier's radio broadcast since the 1980-81 season, and he's volunteered for countless Xavier events and fundraisers over the years, including serving as an MC on numerous events. Byron Larkin, the most decorated player in Xavier history, is the first ever XU player to have his jersey retired. Byron was a former high school All-American football safety at Cincinnati's Moeller High School, but chose instead to play basketball at Xavier. Didn't take long for Musketeer fans to realize that Byron was something special. 2 games into his freshman season, Byron took over down the stretch in a 61-58 win at Pittsburgh, collecting 11 of his 13 points in the second half. 7 games into his freshman year, his clutch play forced head coach Bob back to put him in the starting lineup, and that began a string of 115 consecutive starts that ended with his final game as a senior. Byron joined Joe on the XU broadcast for the 1998-1999 season, and they have been together ever since, and they're together today. So, Byron and Joe, welcome to the podcast.
We're glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Joe and Byron, I echo Jack in saying thank you. As you know, this is mostly about Reds fandom, this podcast. We love our team. And we'll talk a little Xavier basketball, I think, later in the show. But why don't we just go in alphabetical order and talk about your Reds fandom. So, Byron, why don't you talk about your Reds fandom?
Well, pretty easy for my Reds fandom to be a big part of my life. My older brother Barry played for the Reds for 19 years, and it was something special in my family and an experience that I'll never forget. Barry's only 15 months older than me. I was there to kind of experience the excitement of him being drafted by the Reds and being able to go to all his games and to see his career. And he did it all. You know, he got an MVP. He won a World Series. He's in the Hall of Fame. So it's been quite an experience for my family and Reds baseball.
You know, as far as my fandom goes, it goes way back in the 1960s, and I loved going to Crosley Field as a kid. What I remember most about that is simply the atmosphere of walking up to the stadium. You'd buy the peanuts from the peanut vendor. I think it was Peanut Jim that had the big red wagon and the top hat and was always dressed for the occasion. He had a great personality. Then you'd go in the stadium. You had the terrace in left field. You had the screen. You had cars parked on the other side of the screen. Occasionally, they'd hit over the screen, and maybe they hit a car, maybe they wouldn't. Just a lot of unique features. But Gene Freeze was one of my favorite players. He only played a couple years, but I had his baseball card, so that meant everything to it. You know, a kid at the time, Vada Pinson, Gordy Coleman, guys like that. And going to the ballpark was a special experience. So my dad had a grocery store downtown, and he received a couple of tickets from one of the salesmen down there. And I have vivid memories of sitting along first base line, best tickets we ever had, about 20 rows up from the fields, watching Johnny Edwards catch. Johnny Edwards was another favorite player of mine. But I've loved the Reds my entire life. I'm a Reds fan. I'm a Bengals fan. I love Cincinnati, and that's just all part of the fabric of Cincinnati as far as I'm concerned.
You're taking us back with some of those names, man. Gordy Coleman, Johnny Edwards. That's
Frank Robinson, yeah, everybody. It was great.
We've had a few guys, talk about Veda, and why he's not in the Hall of Fame. You know, we're one of our agenda items here is to get Vada Pinson recognized somehow, but maybe someday.
I went to Crosley Field, and I believe it was a bat day back in 1970, right before they closed the field.
Yeah.
And Don Gullett, I think, had just come up as a 19-year-old player. And we got there early with our friends, and we got the bats, went down, and he was in the Reds bullpen, which I think was along the left field line. And we yelled at him. He came over, we got his autograph. Maybe some of the first he gave as a Cincinnati Red, I don't know, but we don't have the bat anymore. We used it, broke it, played with it. It's gone, unfortunately, but I have the memory, and it was great. So.
Can you imagine doing that? I suspect for security and safety reasons, there is no way they would do a Tressler Comet bat right there.
They don't give that anymore. Yeah. Try and make sure my memory was correct on the bat day when it officially stopped. I'm not sure.
Playing baseball growing up with an older brother who was probably a pretty good knot-hole player in his day, and I just wonder about your baseball career as a youth.
Well, growing up, me and my 3 other brothers, we all played 3 sports: baseball, basketball, football, and our favorite sport was whatever sport was being played at the time. And Barry always had a favorite, even though he played all the other sports, as did I. My favorite was basketball. My oldest brother, Michael's, was football, and my little brother, Steven, he loved baseball too. So it was funny how Barry, growing up, all this in the summertime, and we didn't grow up going to Reds baseball games because my mom was like, "Yeah, you want to see the Reds? It's either on the TV or go outside and play." We weren't, we weren't going to Reds games. We just didn't. We were busy playing our own deal. But I remember when every day in the summertime, we'd be out. We had a really long driveway, and Barry and I would go out there all day, just throwing pop-ups and throwing ground balls and just doing it hours and hours every day over the summertime. So then when he got a little older and he went to Michigan, for 3 years and got drafted by the Reds and eventually went on to play for them. I remember each year he would come home from Michigan, and we go out in the yard and toss like we used to. But the older he got, I remember how much stronger and faster the ball would come when I was playing catch with him. So, his first year, I'd be behind the glove, and he'd throw the ball to me. I catch it. The next year, I would stand to the side and let the ball, put my mitt over to the side, because I didn't want to get hit in the face with this ball, man, because his arm just kept getting stronger. And then by the time this junior year, I was like, "Nah, man, I'm done playing catch with you." Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I could just tell that something was changing in him, and it was he was just getting stronger and more precise, and he would always yell at me, like, "Get in front of the ball. Quit being scared." I'm like, nah. So that was fun. And, we played wiffle ball, hours and hours on the side of the house, trying to strike each other out, and no one could ever strike him out. That's just the way he was. But, yeah, it was fun. It was just really fun. We loved the Reds, and just kind of that being part of our athletic history was – playing baseball was a big part of it, because that's all we did in the summertime. What's that?
What was your position? What position did you play?
Oh, I played center field. I loved baseball. I could really, really hit, and never struck out ever. I played up to my junior year in high school at Moeller, and I was playing all 3 sports, and I was, we started, I think, my junior year. I had to make a decision. I had to give up one sport, and I certainly wasn't giving up basketball because that was my favorite, and I wasn't giving up football because I could hit people and not get in trouble for it. So baseball, it just got so cold. I mean, baseball here in Cincinnati, it's February, and you're putting on long johns underneath your baseball uniform. I'm like, baseball was not meant to be played in the snow, so I just kind of said, nah, I'll let baseball go and stay with football and basketball.
I heard a quote attributed to your mom one time. They talked about her lawn, and she said, "Yeah, I'm not raising grass, I'm raising boys," or something like that.
Yes, that was after one Saturday. My dad had we had that paneled station wagon, and all four boys. We had driven to Michael's and Barry's, my game, my little brother's game, and our neighbor made a comment to my dad as we're piling out of the station wagon and said, "Hey, Mr. Larkin," said, your grass would look a little bit better if you paid a little bit more attention to it, because we were out there every day and just stomped it to death. And he says, "Hey, I'm not raising grass, I'm raising sons." And that was kind of the comment that everyone kind of talks about. And that was my dad. He was really into us. He really didn't have any hobbies. His hobbies were, just taking us to our games and supporting us and making sure. His 3 rules were: you're not going to quit, you're going to behave, and you're going to show up on time. That was the rule in the Larkin household, whatever sport you were playing or whatever you were doing. So, yeah, that was the story with that.
That'll get you a long way in life. Joe, what about you? Did you play baseball as a kid?
I played knot-hole baseball on the west side at Lady of Lourdes grade school. Then I moved to St. Catharines and played there. Started out as a catcher and played just about every position available except for second base and shortstop. So I played all the outfield positions, first base, pitched a little bit. But I love knot-hole baseball. And that's kind of my experience of it, but truly enjoyed it.
Westwood Commons?
Yeah, Westwood Commons, sure did. Had some great coaches over there. The last coach I had was a guy named Ron Doppler, and he was really dedicated to the team and loved the suicide squeeze. He had learned how to run bases and slide properly and to get all the signals down and make sure you didn't miss them. If you did, there was something to pay for it. And he ran a really good baseball club. You learned a lot. And enough pressure playing in the sense that the players that moved on to play in high school and beyond, it was good experience for those guys as well.
How about post Crosley Field, Joe? Who were some of your favorite Reds players?
Well, obviously the Big Red Machine. The Big Red Machine, and it was Hal King that hit the home run in '73 against the Dodgers to kind of spur the Reds on to the '73 division championship. I remember that day watching the Reds, George Foster, every one of the Reds. I've got their picture downstairs in the basement of those, the starting 8 for the Big Red Machine. What a glorious time to be a Reds fan. And, 75 and 76 and the home run that Tony Perez hit off of Spaceman Lee in the 7th game of the against the Red Sox in Boston. That's, a great memory. You just have moments in time like that you can pick up and recall. Of course, I'm from the West Side. Love to watch Pete Rose play. He actually lived just a half a mile from where I live now. For a while, he was playing for the Reds. He used to go to a batting cage. I think it was down at Bridgetown and Race and hit baseballs. And my father-in-law would go down there and watch him hit, and Pete would be extremely friendly. Just a lot of great memories like that. And my favorite, Eric Davis, when he hit a home run, was it 1990 against the Oakland A's? I've been to one World Series game, and a fellow named Steve Goodson, a neighbor of mine, invited me to go with him. And it's one of maybe the greatest sporting event I've been to in terms of the feeling in the stadium. The Reds had gone wire to wire up to the point. And Eric Davis, blasted a home run to get that series off on the right foot. And the Reds never looked back in the World Series and swept the World Series. But that was a moment that I really kind of cherish as a Reds fan. Was old enough to remember it and feel that electricity in the crowd. It was great. Enjoyed it. So,
I used to work with Steve Goodson back in the day.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, great neighbor. Yeah, I love Steve. So Steve, yeah. Always appreciate the fact. Thought they asked me.
Yeah, that's nice. So you guys played all the sports. Guys our age say all 3 sports, and we're talking baseball, basketball, and football. What do you think about the amount of specialization that kids are sort of seemingly forced into these days? Just curious, your thoughts on that.
I'm not a big fan of that. Because I think a couple of things. One, I think you can get burnt out easier. I think training for playing different sports can help you, and you play baseball, it can help you in basketball, and vice versa. Playing football, for me, for all 4 years in high school, helped me more than anything to play college basketball. because that physicality, that be willing to hit somebody was just second nature to me. And, take like Barry. Barry was a really, really good football player, really good basketball player or baseball player, and he's pretty good at basketball too. But, he was, it was a toss up. He could have played football. Matter of fact, he went to college on a football scholarship, but was a great baseball player too. And, he could have chose football, and, that, I don't know how far he would have gotten football, but I venture to say, he would have given up this whole baseball thing that was one of the best decisions he ever made. So, and maybe he might have not have made that decision if they forced him to say, hey, at a younger age, you're just a basketball player, or you're just a baseball player. So, I think it helps just being well-rounded and getting exposure to all that. The other thing, too, is you get exposed to different kind of coaches, too, because I think any good player who wants to exceed at a high level has to accept coaching, and I think being exposed to different types of coaches and different types of sports can only help you.
I agree with everything you said. One thing I really enjoyed as a kid, you seemed to have time for pickup games, and there were plenty of them around, whether it was basketball, baseball, football. And who was a great player from Brazil? Was it Pele, I think, back in the... So we started playing soccer, and we had a field that was actually up and down a hill. For a guy my size trying to develop their ability to run, which could be an issue when you're going to be 6'10", and your left and right foot to play pickup soccer, I think that helped me tremendously. It was when I was about 13 or 14 years old. Maybe we played it for a couple months in a row just because of their exposure to the World Cup. And that's something we had time to do. And you move on from sport to sport. And like Byron said, you develop skills from different sports. And Byron, your point on different coaching that you received through grade school and high school and whoever it may be, and the different experiences and the personalities, I never thought of that before, but that is a heck of a point, I think, to be honest with you. That exposure. Yeah, I think it's too specialized to answer your question. Let them go enjoy themselves and have their friends to get them together and pick up games, but that you don't see that much anymore.
Now, the two of you broadcast Xavier basketball. Do you think it would be possible if I was a young kid, maybe a high school kid, and I did not specialize like in basketball? I didn't play AAU. I just played high school basketball. Would you get noticed by college coaches trying to recruit you? Is it almost necessary, in other words, to specialize in order to be noticed? Because I think all the Xavier players that have been recruited in recent years have specialized in basketball.
Byron, I'll jump in here on this one. That's one thing I really do miss is that the high school coaches don't have the influence they used to have. And Randy, you're right. If you want a college basketball scholarship, and that is what your goal is, you need to play the AAU ball circuit. I'm sure there would be exceptions to it, but you better be pretty doggone good, I think you're dead on. How do you feel about that, Byron?
Well, I think recruiting has changed so much from when Joe and I played. I mean, there was no AAU when I played. I'm sure there wasn't AAU for Joe. So the only way to get exposure back then was to go to basketball camp. There was a 5-star basketball camp in Pennsylvania. There was a DC All-Star camp in Indiana. That's where I went. And all these coaches would come to these camps. You play, and then you start getting letters. Well, now there are no camps, they're AAU. And that's how you get exposed. I think a lot of times the kids play so much AAU now that you're not really getting coached. You're just getting exposure. A lot of times these AAU programs, they just roll out the ball and you just go and play. I think the high school is where you get the quality of coaches and understanding, like, hey, what does it take to be successful in college if you want to play college basketball? The idea of like earning your playing time, that you've got to be responsible and committed to playing defense. Everybody wants to score, but do you have the coaching to give you that discipline and being coachable and being able to accept that being coached to be successful? I tell you, the best coach I ever had, one of the best coaches I ever had his name was Danny Ragland. He coached me at Moeller my sophomore year. He was a Bobby Knight disciple. I mean, he had an IU tie. I remember he had a sign on the side of the locker room, and I remember like it was yesterday, and that was back in 1982. Get the job done. No exceptions, no excuses, no alibis. And he would, that's practice was so hard that the games were easy. That's how hard he pushed us. I was almost too afraid to play for him. I almost didn't play because I was afraid of being under that scrutiny. But I tell you what, I had never improved. I improved more under him than any coach I've ever had. And I got that from high school. So I always thank him and hug him. It was hard at the time, but um, I learned a lot of lessons from one of the best coaches I ever had, and that was my sophomore year in high school.
Wow. I lived in a two-family house in Hyde Park with Dan Ragland. He was upstairs from us.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
he was great. He was
Good
great.
guy, real good guy. Yeah, but he's pretty intense. Pretty intense.
Yeah, it's very intense. Very intense.
Now, other than your brother Byron, who have been some of your favorite players on the Reds? In the '90s, in the 2000s, and obviously currently.
Well, I was fortunate enough to get to know a lot of the players on the 1990 World Series team because during that time, Barry and I lived together in a condo in Wyoming, and I was sitting around one day in the off season, and we got a call. Barry's like, "Hey, we're going to play an exhibition basketball game for charity. Why don't you come and play with us?" I'm like, "Okay." So I ended up playing for 2 months with these Reds baseball players for charity events around Ohio in this area. So I got to really get to know Rob Dibble and Jose Rijo, guys like that, and it was really fun. Eric Davis, all those guys. So knowing that was, as Joe said, the 1990 World Series with the Reds. That was so special. It was like the world stopped for that series because nothing else mattered. It was the first thing I thought of in the morning and the last thing I thought of when I went to bed. Like, oh my gosh, these Reds, they're in the World Series, and they were up against the Oakland A's, and the A's were supposed to be one of the best teams in the history of whatever baseball, and the Reds went out and smashed them and swept them, and it was so mad. It was such a magical time, and to be a part of that and to be kind of on the inside, with Barry, it was one of the most special sports events I've ever been a part of.
So I want to know who had game on that 1990 team. Who could play a who?
Well, there was a guy. Barry was pretty good. There's a guy named John Roper, who was a pitcher. This dude was 6 feet tall. He had about a 40-inch 8 vertical. He could jump over the basket like you wouldn't believe. Yeah, so he was good. Jose Rijo wasn't too good, but they had you remember Glenn Braggs?
Sure.
Glenn was a monster, 6'5", about 240 pounds, 3% body fat. Couldn't play a lick of basketball, but he could box out and hurt somebody. So, yeah, but it was fun. It was really fun to do that.
Byron, do you go to a lot of games, or do you tend to watch your brother on TV broadcasts?
I have a tendency to watch Barry on the broadcast. Barry played 19 years for the Reds, and we went to a lot of games, man, and I'm still good. I mean, I went to about 19 opening days. We were all there. My dad always went to almost every game, and I went to a lot. So I'm good relative to going to the Reds games. Now I go to maybe one or two, with my wife or some friends for a special night out. But I love sitting home watching Barry do his thing, and I know he loves it, and I think he does a great job.
Joe, how about you? Some of your favorite players, 2000 and after, and you go to very many games now.
I'll go to 2 or 3 a year, maybe if I can do more than that. I love going to the ballpark. Actually, I enjoy going to the ballpark, watching a few innings, getting some refreshments, maybe walk around the stadium, look at the river, look up in Mount Adams, enjoy all that, then sitting back down and watching 3 more innings of the game. But I love players that can run, De La Cruz. I love when Deion Sanders plays. One of the thrilling times I was at the ballpark, he was on first base and they hit a single to right field. Next thing you know, he's rounding third and heading for home. And I don't know that I've ever seen a human being run that fast in my life around the bases. And it's funny what a thrill that is. I even relate to Chapman, our guy that threw 105 miles an hour. I would happen to be there the night that he made his first appearance as a Red, and the crowd was just on the edge of their seats waiting for him to come out of center field and walk onto the stadium. And he did. I think he threw the first pitch maybe over the catcher's head, but he settled down and started, throwing 102, 103. And the crowd was just so into it. And that was an electrifying moment also. So I kind of enjoy those moments. And I'm still waiting for, the Reds to have a rally here. And I'm kind of excited about this year now, where the Reds are, and they seem to have some pitching, which seems to be the magic for every team. So I'm excited about this season right now. I think there's hope, a lot of hope.
Hey, Byron.
Yeah.
You're color analyst for the Muskies, and Barry's a color analyst for the Reds. So, who gives who advice on how to do the job better?
Well, he's the older brother, so you figure that one out, man. He's always telling me what to do. Nothing ever changes. So we talk about it. He's like, hey, it's different, because he said he's got so many games to do, and basketball we only do maybe 30 games a season, 31 games a season, where he's doing almost every home game, which is 90 something games maybe, or something like that. It's 70 games, but we talk about it a little bit, but I ask him how does he prep, and he'll ask me a couple questions, but yeah, he's he really enjoys it. It's ironic, my mom, we go home and we talk about it sometimes. She's like, hey, 2 of my boys are talking about sports on, and it's pretty funny. So, yeah, but we try to share a little bit each, some little trade secrets, but it's just like, hey, we both go out there and try to have fun. It helps that you're working with someone that you really like and respect. And that's the case with me and Joe, and he feels the same way about his broadcast partner as well.
Hey, Joe, why don't we move over a little bit to XU basketball and college basketball? And I think besides the coaching change, the biggest thing to discuss is the transfer portal and NIL. Are you as frustrated as we are with the way the roster turns over every season?
Absolutely. I've already started a new roster sheet that started out blank, maybe one player, Roddy Anderson, and some a few other folks, but starting to fill it in as we go along here. All new names, and very much so. I kind of go back to when back was it 1977, and the Yankees came in and they bought Don Gullet, if you remember that. And that, to me, I lost a little something for Major League Baseball and the Reds when that started to happen. I always have enjoyed watching players come in as a freshman. Maybe they're not that great, but they try hard, and you see the potential in them, and you get to watch them grow. And before you know it, junior, they're pretty good. Their senior, they're really good. Maybe they end up making money in Europe as a professional, but you just love to see their gradual incline up to success, and that you don't get to see it much anymore. And a coach doesn't know who his team is going to be the next year. Hopefully that can change a little bit now with Richard Pitino. But it's a difficult situation. And until they put some parameters or fences around it, and in a sense, a salary cap or something that kind of limits it, like pro football has versus maybe baseball. Heck, we're on our way to I think, like having Los Angeles and the Yankees, the Dodgers and the Yankees, if it's just who spends the most money. I'm not real thrilled about that at all. Players deserve to be paid. It just needs to be done in a way that leaves some parity somewhere.
Byron, how do you think we fix it?
Joe, I agree with Joe 100%. I like the idea of the NIL. But what I don't like is the there's no, as Joe says, there's no transparency, there's no parameters. It's just kind of the wild, wild west the way it is now. Whoever has the most money gets the best players, and there's no parity in that. That's an untenable situation, I believe. But worse than that, the NIL is, I'm okay with players making money. I'm okay with that. But the worst thing is the transfer portal. That's awful because what it does is teaches young men who are not fully formed yet. First time they face adversity, they go to a school. You're the best player on your high school team. You get on a college team, and you don't play much. So then you got a choice. Do you stay there, work on your game, improve, and earn playing time, or you just point the finger at the coach like, "Oh, you're the reason why I'm not playing. I'm gonna go and play at another school," and then you're immediately eligible. I mean, that's just so bad. It's teaching men like how to handle, or young athletes, men and women, how to handle a bad situation, and the answer is not always, "Oh, I'll just quit and go somewhere else." I mean, they have players who've played in 4 years for 4 different schools, and sometimes these announcers on TV like applaud that, like that's a good thing. That's terrible. It's awful. It doesn't help anybody. These coaches have to not only recruit new players, they have to re-recruit their players on their own roster. And I think what we're going to see is you're going to see multi-year contracts. You're going to say, okay, you want to play here at Xavier, we're going to give you an NIL deal for 2 years. And if you break that deal, there's going to be a buyout. And someone's going to buy out your contract. That's what I believe we're going to see. But you're seeing, I think there was a Tennessee football player who held out in the middle of camp for more money. You're going to see that too. There's just shame on the NCAA for letting the cat out the bag without any foresight to see some of these problems. The other thing is the transfer portal, the timing of the transfer. This is absolutely crazy. The transfer portal opened while the NCAA games are still being played. What sense does that make? So you have the teams who are playing in the Sweet 16. The portal's open. They can't look to add players because they're playing a game trying to get to the Final Four. And I think the NCAA is just a mess, and they're really ruining the sport. They're ruining it for the fans too. Because as Joe said, you don't see guys develop. It's just one and done, kind of mercenaries. They're here, and then next year it's going to be a whole new team.
I think is interesting is I'm a college baseball fan, and for some reason in college baseball, you have to stay 3 years before you're eligible to be drafted. So if a baseball player comes to Xavier as a freshman, he's ineligible to leave. Maybe he can leave, but he can't be drafted until after the 3rd year. And I just don't understand why there's a difference between college baseball and college football and college basketball. I don't know if you have any insight or comment on that.
Well, the players for baseball always had the chance, which I kind of like the system. If you wanted to be a pro out of high school, you go play in the minor leagues or go play in the major leagues if you're good enough. On the other hand, if you want to wear a jersey that says Xavier or whatever it might be, go play for a university. I do find that fans of college athletics, they root for the name on the jersey more than anything else. And you'll see that even when you go to NCAA tournaments, if a particular team loses with a huge fan base, that arena is not necessarily sold out just because it's two really good teams. Most of those fans are there to root for their team, the name on the jersey. And I like if players can have the choice to go pro like they did with baseball, go to the minor leagues, or stay and go for a situation with academics and the baseball. But why it is that way, to your initial question, Randy, I don't know. I'm not sure why it's any different.
Well, hey, here we go. Now we do some word association sometimes on the podcast. This time we're going to put you on the spot a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say Xavier really needs to win a game in the NCAA tournament, and you can pick from the coaches that have coached the Muskies for the last 40 years. Who do you want coaching that game?
I'm going to pick
I'll let
Chris
you go
Mack.
first, Joe.
I pick
That
Chris
was my
Mack.
pick.
Although,
That's
you
what
know
I
what?
picked.
I'll tell you what. You probably knew I was going to say this. We've had great coaches. We've been to the Elite Eight with 3 different coaches, and they've all accomplished great things. We've had sharp, smart people coaching our basketball team. Stan Mata was brilliant, I thought, with the strategy, and Chris and Sean Miller obviously can coach in the tournament. I'm really hoping I can answer that with Rick Pitino because I'm looking to go to a Final Four one of these years. I'd like him to win several in a row and take me there if he could, because I would love that, obviously.
I like that answer, Joe. I agree. I would say Chris Mack. Chris is, he's the leading. He's got more wins than any other coach in Xavier's history. He's led us to a number 1 seed, the only coach to do that, and I think he's great. He wins wherever he goes, and I'm with Joe. I hope we're going to say Richard Pitino soon because I'm real excited about him leading the program now.
Okay, how about we're in an NCAA tournament game? There's 10 seconds left on the clock. The Muskies are down 1. Who of all the former players, except for Byron Larkin, do we want to have the ball and take the shot?
I think I know what Joe's going to say, but go ahead, Joe. I'll let you take it.
David West, is that who you're guessing? I'm saying David West.
Okay. Well, it's.
Who did you think I was going to say?
This is Randy. It's a different situation. Like, if you want somebody, if you want to throw the ball, if you're throwing the ball into the post and being unstoppable, that's David West. But if you're talking about having the ball, having to go the length of the court, I would say Tu Holloway, because Tu Holloway had a never-ending dribble. And he had onions the size of watermelons, let me tell you. There was never too big of a moment for him. He was cool as the other side of the pillow, man, no matter what the situation was. So he's got ice in his veins. That's the point guard I would want. The post guy, David West, no doubt about it. If we were drawing up a play to hit a shot at the end, Trayvon Blewett. Trayvon Blewett was probably the best shooter Xavier has ever won. Best shooter in the history of Xavier basketball, in my opinion.
Okay, now we're going to really get tough on you.
Okay.
What's your favorite chili, Gold Star or Skyline?
Skyline.
I'm a Skyline guy. I'm a Skyline.
My house is
I grew up. Yeah, that's what I grew up on too, Joe. I lived in Silverton, and on my way to Moeller, there was a Skyline, and we just wore it out. It was, I grew up on it and still love it.
Okay, even tougher. Your favorite ice cream place, Grader's, United Dairy Farmers, or Aglamisi's?
That's a tough one.
I like the black raspberry chip, Byron, from homemade UDF. That's my favorite.
I'm a UDF guy too, Joe. Chocolate chip and butter pecan. I grew up on that. I eat that all day. 2 scoops, sugar cone. I'm done. Good questions, Randy.
Okay,
really good
how
questions.
about, now we're going to really get tough.
Yeah.
Your favorite Reds mascot?
Famous Reds mascot?
Your favorite one? Rosie,
I like Capper.
Mr. Red?
I like Mr. Red. He was always a little scary just with his size, like he'd walk up on you, but Mr. Red is good for me.
How about you, Joe?
How about, can you guys
I
hear
like
me?
Gapper.
You like Capper?
Gapper's good. Kind of a little different. I enjoy it. I can change though from week to week on that.
Yeah, my grandkids all love Rosie. I'll tell you. Yeah. Okay, now, hey, no Xavier basketball / Reds episode can be complete without asking you, who is your favorite Cincinnati Bearcat of all time?
Oh, favorite now of all time.
We're going to do favorite.
Oscar Roberts. I thought he represented I really think he's obviously, always in my opinion, he was the greatest player ever. Now that can be argued, I guess, with Michael Jordan and people like that. But what a great representation of University of Cincinnati and the city of Cincinnati to have, and Oscar Robertson. That's how I always felt about him. So,
Yeah, no doubt about it. Oscar was one of the best players to ever put a uniform on. Obviously, in Cincinnati history, no doubt about it. But my favorite, you're not asking for the most talented. My favorite is Terry Nelson. Terry's just one of the best people that you ever want to meet. He's just a great guy. He was a great player. I think he does a great job announcing games, and he's a good buddy of mine, and I'm just a big fan of his. And he's always gracious and he's always about the right thing. And I just think he's just a really good person. So he's one of my favorites.
Okay. Hey, thanks for all of your time this afternoon, but I'm going to finish with one last question. Give us a prediction of when the Reds are going to be next in the World Series. Are we going to see it in 2025? Are we going to see it in this decade? Or is it going to be later than that?
That's a tough one.
I think not this year, but the next season. Personally, I love the manager. I like the fact they're collecting pitching. You can have a lot of injuries with pitchers and so forth, but they seem to have an abundance of pitching, which should last for a while, and they can fill in the pieces around them, is my opinion. So I'm going to say 2026.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I know time's running out because I know Ellie, once he becomes a free agent, I mean, he's going to command so much money. They need to get it done before that happens, and I don't know if that's 1 or 2 years from now. But, yeah, him and McClain are two of the best players. I love watching them play. I like the manager. Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm with Joe. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year.
Okay. Well, hey, that's great to hear. Sounds like we have some room for optimism. I like to hear some optimism. But hey, we really appreciate your time today. I'm sorry Jack fell off for one reason or another. But we appreciate you taking the time today, fellas. And go Muskies.
We enjoyed being here. Thank you very much. Yep.
Thanks, Randy and Jack. Thank you.
Good All right, give it up. Byron Larkin, Joe Sunderman, two of the greatest Musketeers of all time. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jack.
Cincinnati, what a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.